Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, April 25th. Derek Nariper, Eno Saris, Trevor May here with you on this Thursday. A little schedule flip, which is actually super relevant to one of the main topics today. We're going to talk about building an elite bullpen, and flexibility might be the key in that. So we've got Trevor working the 8th with us today instead of closing us out at the end of the week in the 9th. I don't know. Terrible analogy. I'm using it anyway. It's cheesy. It's lame. It's fine. A lot of bullpen talk today, but we got a couple news items to get to first. And I wanted to start with Jordan Walker. He's been demoted to AAA in April in each of his first two big league seasons. Last year was because of defense. He was learning a new position. You could see the struggles. It was easy to just watch and go, okay, yeah, he's not comfortable out there yet. He actually was hitting okay, I think his first month last year when he got demoted. And they had a logjam in the outfield. This year, it's more of a specific struggle. Like his swing mechanics are a little out of whack. They're saying he's struggling with down and away pitches. And I just want this to make sense because some of the guys they're playing ahead of Jordan Walker are not the long-term solutions, but sometimes you have to do that as an organization. So, Trevor, I want to ask you this. Like, how much does it matter, like the specific problem, and how much does it matter the type of player and their mindset when you use a demotion like this to try and get things right? Because in my head, getting sent down when you should be a fixture in a lineup would be a potentially confidence-shattering sort of event, right? To sort of deal with the, hey, I'm not on the big league roster anymore. Like that would have a different effect on different people. So does this seem like the right situation with Walker? And how do you feel about the get your confidence back, get right mechanically demotions that we see from time to time?
Yeah, I think we see like the confidence shattering thing happen fairly often where guys are highly touted prospects. They come up, things don't go quite as, as planned. And then, something seeps in where maybe it's someone who hasn't struggled a lot up until that point. I think that's pretty common. And, then they go down and they do well again, and then they have to wait a little bit for their promotion, and so there becomes a little bit of jadedness happens. A guy that's like pops in my mind is Kelnick. I feel like there's a lot of that happening where it took a little bit longer. I know the Orioles right now are thinking about like how it might affect probably Holiday if that were to happen to him, just because he has struggled mightily here at the beginning. So. And you have to weigh those things with the guy like Jordan Walker for it to be the second one too. I know that's deep in his mind. Like that doubt that he maybe has never had is probably more present than it ever has. Like, am I actually good enough to stay? Is that what I'm being told? Was I just wrong? And that's really hard to do, especially on your own. Because at the end of the day, when you go down to AAA, like everyone there wants to be in the big leagues too. Like you're not going to get any sympathy. Like it's the worst thing ever when you come down and you're salty because you're down, and then the guy's like, "Hey, we've all been here, man. Like, you gotta get over it fast." So you only get a couple days of that.
You can't be entitled,
Yeah, you can't be entitled, or you can't feel like you're even if everyone thinks they're better. You're like, we're better than this league. Like I deserve to be in the league. Everyone feels that way. It's universal, and it's kind of got to go unsaid because you're not going to get guys to be like, yeah, man, you definitely should be there. They feel the same way. It's just that's only going to take you so far. So, but I've seen it a lot. I've seen guys come down and like dwell on it a little bit too long, and at the end of the day, you do have to go down and just show that you're making progress. Now, when it comes down to like getting good at or getting better at something specific, like they said about Jackson Holiday needs to hit lefties. Like that's just kind of lip service when they sent him down at the beginning or in spring. So
because where are there better lefties? Like where
exactly
are the
like
lefties?
A lot of it's just an excuse. It's just something to say, and that I don't know. He's just struggling, and that might have been like he's not hitting this pitch well, but like he's just not playing that well generally, and this is a plausible reason to send him. But as for going down, like having a plan, there's not very many organizations that are really good at that communication. Like, hey, we're putting you in positions to work on this, and the work you're doing in the cage is to work on this, and like that's just you go down and you kind of become part of the team pretty quickly, and
you're just working
you're not
with
going to get special treatment. Yeah, you're not going to get special treatment. Some guys do. There's some exceptions, but for the most part, it's very easy to go down, and then you're just in AAA now, and you can get comfortable there. And so it's going to be on him to take that stuff to heart, and then find his best way to do his work every day while he's trying to perform while at the same time improving in the ways that he's been told that he needs to improve. It's really hard to do. It's a balance, but hopefully the confidence shattering doesn't take away from the ability to like be motivated to do that work. And sometimes it does.
I'm not suggesting this is necessarily the case with Jordan Walker, but you did bring up Kelenic, and there was some talk about this being the problem with Kelenic was listening to team coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I've written a little bit about this year about just how many voices are in a player's head and how many of their own coaches they have. And so I know with Kelenic, like once he was set down, there was this big story about, oh yes. And then he came and met with the coaches, and we met with his private coach, and we all met together, and we made a plan together. And this plan produced this great April when Kelenic came back, remember? And it was kind of, the implication was he finally listened. So I do wonder if sometimes these things are like, you're not listening, like it doesn't seem like you're trying to do the things we want you to do. So we're kind of trying to reach out to you to let you know, like you need to listen, you need to improve in these ways, or else, we don't think that you can be in the big league. So have you ever seen that happen where like they're like, it's just somebody that's like working with Teacher Man, and like Teacher Man says this, and the team is like, God, you're just like, can you stop just doing the Teacher Man thing? We're just trying to teach you this other thing. And then they send them down, and then like the player's like, well, my time in the big leagues is at stake here. I guess I should listen to them, or I don't know. Did that ring any bells? Something like that?
Oh yeah. There is a very fine line between being coachable and being a happy soldier yes man. Right. There's a very, very fine line, and it's hard to tell. Even like it's hard to tell when you're the guy if you're not quite sure what you're. If you don't have the experience yet to know who you are as a big league player yet. So like, that's a very sticky situation. That's where good coaching and good, like open-minded, like you latch on to a guy's excitement to learn something, or like what he's excited about. Like he comes to you something like, hey, I want to try this thing. There's a way to do that right. And there's a way to like, be like, well, that's not the way we do things, and shut it down. That guy's going to get jaded. That guy's going to get a little more stubborn because he believes that's best for his career, and you have to give him a good reason not to. So like, there is some of that. I run into a lot of coaches that like, this is the way we do it. This is our way. And
the Cardinals way, we've heard that before.
So that's a real, like I've talked to guys that have played in a lot of places, and they just were not fans of how micromanaged they got to, especially like veterans. We're like, dude, like it's just not the way that I am. I go for my intent is to do things that maybe they don't do historically, and they tried to kind of mold me into that model, and we butt heads a little bit. Like honestly, like even the Schilt leaving was a little bit of a weird situation, right? Because he had a different ideas, and they didn't want it. They didn't want to hear it.
Which is weird because he loved the Cardinal way, and he came up through that organization, and he was really part of making the Cardinal way. And then they were like, "No, you're not doing enough analytics or whatever it was." And,
or like maybe he was suggesting things that they were just like really opposed to, and that's just the last straw. So I don't know though. I don't know. I haven't heard a lot about Jordan as a person either, or I haven't heard anything about him not being a good, easily coachable. So, but yes, there's a lot of that, and then and sometimes an organization just feels like you're not doing their way, and they kind of just like are out. You sometimes getting a.
I think that's when you end up
somewhere else.
Trading like a Randy Rosarena.
Yes,
you're like,
exactly.
Randy, we've been trying to tell you to get the ball in the air forever, and you just can't do it. So see ya. Going to Tampa. And Tampa's like, hey, you know what? You hit the ball hard. You're really speedy. Like, do what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a very Rays thing. That's why guys go to the Rays a lot and are successful.
Yeah, and one thing I've heard about Rays player development is not that they are so great in that they fiddle all the dials and they're like, oh, do this, do this, do this. In fact, what I've heard about the Rays player development is they're good because they're just like, like we think these are the things you do well. We'll tell you to do those things more, but like we're just gonna let you be, man. We got you for a reason. There might be some little stuff around the sides, but like, like we're not going to be like, we need to change your arm slot. Yeah,
It's very much like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Kind of like vibe.
Yeah.
Like it's just not there. It's just not a super emotional thing. Like we're gonna give you all the tools, and if the performance just doesn't pan out the way we thought we had, hopefully you can get.
Or if you're good in some other way we
you.
didn't expect, like
we might miss it, but we're gonna do our best. And then that's the and what do you think? And then it's collaborative. I've heard Dodgers same thing. Like they just have people who are like just generally curious about different information. Those are the people I gravitated towards too. Like when a guy was just curious about like trying new things, coach or player, those were the people that I was talking to all the time. That's why I love sitting in the analytics room, because that's what they were doing. They were literally every year they were just trying new ways of presenting the data. So that's their job. So like having those conversations, that was like a great place to do it. So it's nuanced in a lot of ways, but yeah, I mean, it's tough.
Speaking of data here on Jordan Walker, I think my approach would be to put him in the lineup every day, near the bottom of the lineup, and leave him alone. Because, and this is my evidence for it, Jordan Walker has hit a ball 113 and has an 11.9% barrel rate so far this year. His strikeout rate's a little bit worse than average, but his swing strike rate's about the same as last year. His walk rate's about average. But if you focus on the batted ball quality, other players that have hit the ball near 113 and hit barrels like sort of 10 to 11% of the time include Ryan Mountcastle, MJ Melendez, William Contreras, Christian Walker, Kristen Encarnacion Strand, Pete Alonso, Ian Happ. I mean, I didn't go to the upper ends, past that. The Ian Happ has hit a ball 114. So I kept it between 112.8 and 113 and 114. So those are comps. Those are good comps.
Yeah,
those are good comps. I know Melendez is not quite taken off, but like if I had, what are the Royals doing with Melendez? Playing him. You know, that's what I would do with Jordan Walker. I'd play him. just play him and be like, we would like, it's not going to be Jordan Walker that takes us out of this. It's going to be Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt refining what they normally do. They're the guys that are going to make us go. And then if we really get going, it's Jordan Walker's doing it too. And the only way to really get going is be like, Jordan, just keep on doing it. Yeah.
Then they have the luxury to do it. I mean, it's not like they're, running away with the division or something. Like they're like, we need to keep production or someone's gonna catch us. I just feel like that's a little bit of Cardinals thing. It's like we have to do stuff like this to show that we're,
that we're tweaking the dials. We're doing something.
Yeah, we're tweaking the dials. Like we're mixing it up, and that's very old school. I think that there's more teams that are like. I feel like the Yankees struggled with that for a long time, and now they're finally committing to like this is how we're going to be better. Like
we're going to play Anthony Volpe all year, despite there being obvious, some concerns with the bat. And now Anthony Volpe's like great, and part of that was they just played him all year.
And he felt like he was gonna play. Like it's like, am I gonna get this opportunity? And then it takes a lot of pressure off. Yeah, like you just mentioned, like all the peripherals are like, he's fine. He's like four balls dropping, and then the season looks completely different. Like it's April. Like so. Is it worth possibly sacrificing a guy's confidence? I don't think so, especially when you're not like running away with the division. So just let the guy play if he's factored in. Now that's one thing. Maybe that plan's changing in their mind. Maybe they're getting a little bit take a step back. Like this isn't panning out, and that happens. Like it's one day someone in charge goes, I'm not huge on that guy anymore, and then that's all she wrote.
Yeah. And I understand also from the fans' perspective, they're watching this every day. And so they're saying, oh, he doesn't look good in his at-bats. The confidence is gone. But I think that is also a portion of, they're not actually playing him. Like what I'm saying is play him every day. They're not doing that, and so he saw the writing on the wall. Ollie Marmol's taking him out of games late.
So he sees it coming. Yeah. Which is not helping.
Right.
If I don't hit now, I'm going to get sent down. So
yeah.
And you get sent down. That's what happens.
You're right.
I keep looking at this team and thinking, they are a tinkering organization. Ollie Marmol is like the next big tinkering thing they're going to do. They're going to replace him. Like it's not a place where you can be in last place for a long time and get away with it, right? They finished last season. They're in last place, I think, entering play on Thursday.
I think Mozeliak's lost his fastball, man. I think the big tinker needs to happen.
Well, yeah, I think that would be the right adjustment too. I think Chaim Bloom is better than John Mozeliak, and they have that opportunity if they make that change to promote Hyam and
I mean,
move on
what have we
that
seen
way.
from Ziliak? He's said publicly, we didn't focus on swing and miss enough. We haven't. Our pitching development program is not modernized enough. So that's half of your job, and now the hitting side is totally falling apart. So it's like, well, what are you doing right? I think they do have good scouts. They consistently produce interesting young athletic players. So that I think their scouting system is pretty good, but the other stuff is not looking good right now.
No, frustrating times in St. Louis. One other thing I wanted to talk to both of you about was just tracking workloads, because what we're seeing from the Pirates with Paul Skenes is a plan, and they're slowly ramping him up. Last time out, that was just yesterday against AAA Omaha, 4 1/3 innings, his longest outing of the season. You think about the way Paul Skenes was used last season, his final college season, and how he's being brought along this year. Trevor, if an organization came to you with a plan like what the Pirates are doing with Paul Skenes, would you be on board with that in the year 2024? Managing innings this way, managing workloads this way, as opposed to managing it some other way? Like, how would you respond to that, or how would you plan it if you were in the pitching director position and you had someone like Skenes that you were trying to get onto the big league roster?
It's a very interesting question because, it's all about avoiding injuries. These guys they're going from, especially guys who are like first overall picks, they're going to be in the big leagues like within a year. They're going from a 60 game season to a 162 game season. I understand that the workload difference is more than double most of the time, which is a big, like, you're not going to get 180 innings out of a guy right out of college. You're just not. I mean, you might, but that probably won't pay off the next year after that and the year after that. Like, that's when that gets a toll. You can get ahead of yourself. And so there is some of that needs to happen. One thing that I struggle with and that is bothering me, I think that we haven't seen it come to fruition quite yet, but we will when the older guard, the Verlanders and the Max Scherzers and those guys are kind of not playing anymore, is that you're just like, you're training these guys. They're not doing what their job is. Like, they're just pitching. They're just like eating up a couple innings. And then, so they're just like, it's almost like you're training for a marathon, but you're never actually running one. It seems as a reliever too, like, you have that guy, it takes a toll on you. You're like, okay, he's only going to throw 4 or he's only going to throw 5, and you're never going to get that big game. And they never learn how to become that big game guy. So like, once if it's been 3 years since a guy's thrown 7 innings, like, it's now foreign to him. You're not going to, the guy takes over and throws a 9-inning game, just like, you got to pry the ball out of my cold dead fingers. So I want to make sure that's there too. I would much rather them do longer bodies of work when they're pitching, and then like have an extra day of rest than vice versa. I would much rather do that. I would try to do that if possible. But the problem with that is, and the reason that we don't go to like a 6-man, like, if they don't just say we have 27-man rosters now and you get one starting pitcher. And I think we talked about this last week when we were getting ready for the show. Yeah, like, maybe make one of them have to be a 0-3 guy, right? So like the money, they're like, well, we're paying one extra pitcher, big league money. Like, that's going to be the problem. That's going to be the sticking point. And then it's going to affect innings and production and of all the other starters. So like, free agency markets will have to adjust, and they don't want to do that. Like, it's just, you're starting to affect money. Right. And when that happens, that's usually when things just grind to a halt. So, but I do think long term, in terms of quality of pitching and development, that's the better option. Because
you like the 6-man rotation.
I would much rather a guy throw 7 innings once a week than throw maybe twice, 3 innings both times, not really learning how to, like, he doesn't have to work through adversity. He doesn't have to work through that long inning because he knows he's going to be done after it or whatever. Like it just, it's a different mental development you're getting. And we're seeing that more and more and more, especially with the high picks. It's like, they're supposed to come up and be studs, and like, you want them to throw 200 innings eventually, but we're gonna treat them like they're on a spring training schedule for the first year of their career. I understand you want them at the end of the year, but like, that's just not feasible. And you should just like not be like, we're just not gonna have him for the playoffs or in the playoffs. He's just not going to be that guy. He's just not, but he is going to be the guy who gets us there. Maybe that's enough for the first year. And I feel like everyone's trying to get their cake and eat it too. And I think you just need to pick one.
I guess so. Given this, like, this state of baseball and these rosters and what's going on, I think what they're just basically trying to do is mimic the major league schedule. So like, they're not going to put him on extra days of rest if he's not going to get extra days when he gets to the big leagues. Exactly. So get him on that extra schedule and basically treat this like an extended spring training. Like they're just trying to be like, you're going to be like, instead of going 3, 4 and you're ready for the big leagues or whatever, it's going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
three,
we're just
three, 4.
or 3, 3, 4, 5. I do think they're going to get to 5. I don't think he's going to be a guy that necessarily goes long, especially if he's a 100-mile-an-hour guy. I think he might be, closer to 5 and dive, especially since they're going to be managing those. But what's interesting to me is that like the science of this is a little bit beyond the actual implementation. So we know a little bit about acute to chronic ratio, which is basically that like acute stress is the game day. Acute is, you're throwing 100, you're doing your 5 innings, whatever. That's acute. In order to get to acute ability, you need to up your chronic ability. And so that's like, I can run a half marathon this weekend because I just ran 8.5 miles yesterday and at a certain tempo. And I know that 13 miles is in me. But I couldn't, if I was up to like 5 miles, I wouldn't want to run the 13. You know what I mean? I have to develop a chronic ability, a sort of everyday ability to be able to hit those heights. You don't ever want, like, it would be terrible if I wasn't running at all and then just woke up on Sunday and was like, let's go run the freaking half marathon. So that's the acute to chronic ratio. So we have that sussed out to some level. And that's part of like pulse and these sort of tracking things. There is one major league pitcher. There is actually a monitor that you can put on your elbow that's been approved to wear in the major leagues. There's one major league pitcher wearing it. His name is Nick Martinez, and he's wearing the pulse thing while he pitches. And that can give... Huh? There's 2?
Joe Boyle wears it too. Oh, we got him.
Yeah.
But Joe Boyle, the A's, also wears it. Yeah.
All right. So what that's telling Joe Boyle and what's telling Nick Martinez is your acute level of stress. And so then you can throw that into something and know how much to rest, because you want to acute is like the big fatigue thing. And then you need to come off that, but you need to build up the chronic. You can't just stop pitching for a week because you hit an acute. So like there's this like sort of relationship, and it would be better if every single pitcher wore the pulse monitor. I'm sure of it. It doesn't have to be pulse branded. There's different ones. My guy Casey Mulholland at Connect Pro has one. Like whatever it is, wear something that does actually measures the direct stress, because Paul Skenes is throwing 100.
Yeah.
Like his acute stress is probably worse than others. So maybe it would be better to have him on the 6th day.
Yeah, it might be. Everyone like 100. How guys get to 100? Some guys are. I mean, have a lot more effort than others. Yeah. It does, but like that, we know that means nothing because like Aaron Sanchez, he was easy. He kept getting hurt, right? So that's who knows what that, or Trinan, same thing. Like so, I think that. I think you're right there. I think it would be great to see that kind of stuff. I actually wore it for like the last, at least I was in playing catch, not in the game. I had enough things on my body during the game. So I was like, but I wanted to know like how long toss was affecting me in terms of chronic, and because I had to pitch every day. And so that was really interesting too, because my chronic was slowly building up, but I was building my arm strength and building my I guess resistance to injury while I was playing catch that day, and I made that part of my deal. I think there is something there, and I think that maybe we shy away from that a little bit. Starters definitely do. There's a lot of starters that like never go beyond 90 feet because it's all about just resting between your starts. And I think we learn a lot more. Yeah, exactly. We learn a lot more about what they're able to, how much they're able to go step on the foot on the gas, and maybe start to build those innings, even if they're not cataloged innings in games. They're still building more ability to handle chronic stress over time, so that maybe that goes a little bit faster, and that would give us a way to track it.
Right.
Yeah, tracking that chronic seems really hard to do because
you're like wearing the thing all the time.
Yeah, players have to wear that stuff all the time. And is it just like a Fitbit that goes up higher on your arm? Is it
kind of? And it's got to be placed perfectly, like every time, and flip the right way. And it's an exact science in a lot of ways.
It's not as easy as just putting
muddy data.
Apple Watch on or a Fitbit.
I mean, it kind of is. It's just after like where you got to put it up here on your forearm. So it's like not as like you gotta get used to it down or up, and because once your ligaments in there too, like how they're flexing, and if you miss them, then it's getting weird. Like for example, like the arm angle reading gives you is just kind of a little bit of a crapshoot. Like it's hard, you can't really do anything with it because it's sometimes just way off. But I think that in terms of like revolutions, like how fast your arm's moving and stuff, the accelerometer in it is really good. So that's the one thing it does really well, which is the acute. That's how they get the acute versus chronic stress.
Yeah, I just think that's the missing thing. It's like being able to count all of the workload. It's just incomplete information. That's what makes this job so difficult. Yeah, it's getting better. But how uncomfortable is it having that extra monitor on your arm? Like that just seems like it would take a little bit of getting used to, especially to throw at game speed. Like you were playing catch with it, but pitching in a game.
Were you aware of it all the time? When
like would you just be thinking about it for the first several times you're using it?
At first, the first couple times, and then it just became normal.
Yeah, I don't think about this at all,
Yeah, I don't think about like I would wear the Whoop up here on my arm, high up, and I literally would forget it was on my body when I was out there, because you can't be able to see it. So I would just put it somewhere so it wouldn't be able to be seen. It's like one of those things, like you can't wear like a wristband or whatever on your glove hand. Like it's just extra stuff.
While you're playing.
While you're playing. It's actually less of you're technically not supposed to wear a Whoop because technically they can vibrate. Mine never does. It's just only for an alarm,
cheat or something.
I mean, technically it could be used that way, I guess, if it were a hacker, but like they don't have the ability to do that. But like, it's one of those things, like some umpires like, hey, take your wedding ring off because you might be scuffing the ball. And the other guy's like, whatever, it's your wedding ring. Like, who cares? I literally ran out once and I was like, oh crap, my bad. He goes, I don't give a shit. And then he walked away. I was like, all right.
Yeah, what's the state of the hand checks coming off the mound now compared to when they started? Because they look like they've eased up a little bit when you watch them on TV.
Performance now.
Yeah, they look like the meme of the security guy just like fake patting someone down as they're about to walk into the stadium. That's what they look like now. But are they actually still looking for anything?
I mean, Phil Cousy is definitely
one guy.
He's caught everybody. He's the only guy who's caught anyone.
That's right.
So he's
the one that like did it really long with Bumgarner until they got into a big fight.
Really long with Bumgarner, and then he's the one who got Drew Smith last year, and he got Scherzer last year, and he's the first one who got Santiago. He was the first guy, so he was the martyr. But most guys are like, you're good.
I guess the other guys are like, as long as I can't see it and it's super egregious,
just don't be glaring
all over your fingers.
And I've heard there's been other times where some guys on my team came out and they're like, "Really, man?" And he's like, "Oh, it's some gum." And he's like, "All right." And then he touches it, and then like after the game, they'll be like, "Hey, manager, let's clean that up, all right?" Because that was.
If he does that again, I might.
Yeah, that was one, and I've been told a couple times that like I've asked guys like, who is there? Have you caught anybody? They're like, there's like a couple guys that like mentioned the division they're in that are pretty on the. Everyone else is pretty good, fine. Because like whatever, like you're out there chewing gum, and like there's just crap getting on your. Sometimes guys it's an accident. Some guys are like like just trying to get the oil off their hands, and it just feels like more tacky. And then there's some guys who are like, dude. So that's just but those are few and far between.
Not the way it used to be. I mean, it used to be
they were looking, they wanted it, they were excited to catch you. But it's definitely become.
But also on the use side, you get it was like almost everybody doing it at some point, and then now it's probably
it's way less, less, and you get a reputation too. So it's like if you're a closer and like you've run into guys a couple times, they're like, I know your hands are the same every time, so we're like we're good. It's kind of like if you knew a TSA guy who's seen you, like you fly every week or whatever. You're like, hey, what's up, man?
Yeah,
you're pretty. You're probably good.
Yeah, you're probably not taking your shoes off if you know the TSA agent by name and they
fine, I know you. Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about bullpens, building an elite bullpen, because we think a lot about closers on this show. We think a lot about getting saves because they matter a lot in most fantasy leagues. There are some leagues that use saves plus holds or saves and holds or some kind of formula where saves are a little more valuable. Holds still matter too. It's a way of opening up the pool, making more relievers a part of the fantasy game. I wanted to start in the 9th inning and work backwards and say, what traits do you want in an actual closer, a capital C closer? If you're going to have someone dedicated to working the 9th inning, what should that pitcher be able to do beyond just being filthy, right? There are more filthy relievers in baseball than there ever have been. But what gives you the extra things you need to be a specialist in that role?
I mean, one of my theories is just a big fastball. I think you need a big fastball, and I think it's that you need to be able to just blow it by people. I think that's something you want out of your closer. We've seen some guys like Sergio Romo. I always wanted Luke Gregerson to close, and he didn't quite ever really get the chance, maybe once or twice. And I think that the problem with the Sergio Romo, Luke Gregerson types is, first of all, like you might just hang a slider, and when you hang a slider, it's 80 something in the middle of the zone. If you misplace a 99 mile an hour fastball, it's still a 99 mile an hour fastball. You know, like what would I rather throw? An 80 mile an hour cement mixer middle, or a 99 mile an hour fastball middle? I think my answer is pretty easy. And so there's been some research that suggests that fastball velocity matters. I think we could probably change it a little bit to fastball stuff plus. If I just look at fastball stuff plus at the top, you know, you got Kopech, Bednar, Mason Miller, Robert Suarez, Ryan Helsley, and then non-closers that maybe, I mean, Tanner Scott's up there. I think that's why he still has a job. And then non-closers that could be on the cusp that have really great fastball stuff plus. Ryan Stanek is right there. Victor Vodnik supposedly has a really good fastball. Chad Green, one of my favorites always. Jason Adam. You know, so these are guys with good fastballs that aren't closing. And I think I would take, an Adam as my closer. I think the Rays are going to do fine while he's closing for them while Fairbanks is out. And, Brian Abreu's on this list, and Chad Green could be a closer for me, and Ryan Stanek could be a closer for me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Trev?
I agree with that. I think big fastball. I think it comes down to having an elite pitch. But if that pitch is a fastball, that is the best version. Like Mason Miller right now could give one of these every time, and guys will be still missing it. And
you'd be like, I'm throwing the fastball.
I'm throwing the fastball. And frankly, Sergio, there was some time there where he could have just
I'm throwing the
slider, and guys were just like getting excited, but he just never hung it. And that was like the thing. But like you said, yeah, mistakes are taken advantage, or a little like you can identify that as a mistake and do damage on it, maybe easier than identifying a miss heater, even though fastballs are hit harder generally. If you have a high swing and miss fastball, you have the ability to be a closer. It's like it definitely, the ability to get a strikeout is going to be your number one thing, because it's a true zero value outcome for a hitter. And if you get into trouble, the chances that you can get out of that trouble without them moving a runner or making anything happen are much higher. So like guys like Edwin Diaz, guys like Josh Hader, though Stanek. I would like
they don't have command. They might put a guy on or two, but then they'll just strike out.
But they can strike out the way to get out of it. And then it comes down to, between the years, they understand that like they're not in trouble even if they walk a couple guys. And then that's when the guys become elite. So that's what we see with Edwin, is that he just like I said, he goes 3-0, he's just gonna walk. You're like, whatever, I'm not gonna give a solo homer to you because I can strike the next three guys out. And he's just not worried about it. And that's made him what he is now. And Hader's the same way. He's not worried. So it's because they have those things. And I would say that's the biggest point. But I think that firemen are kind of like almost like guys who are the next in line to close. That's why a lot of times you see like a guy who throws the 6th, 7th, and then the closer gets hurt, and then he closes and jumps the 8th inning guy, because the 8th inning guy has like experience, but doesn't necessarily have the stuff. Like, I mean, they probably make that case with Presley, which is weird. That's why Hader's closing is because they're different stuff. But even though Presley's stuff plus on all of his pitches is great, he doesn't throw 100. That's really what it comes down to.
Little less margin for error in that situation. How many defined roles do you want to have across an entire bullpen unit? I mean, I started thinking about this when the Rays in 2020 had all these funky looks. It was like, well, maybe you just want what Lance Brozdowski put together as a visual. You just want the arms of a clock. You just want every possible arm slot in the bullpen. And yeah, you're going to get varying stuff. Some of those guys throw really hard. It's got Aaron Loop, Josh Fleming, Jose Alvarado, Pete Fairbanks, Aaron Slegers, Ryan Thompson, I think were the guys kind of featured in this particular group. And it's wild. I mean, you got Loop down at 9 o'clock. You got like Fleming and Alvarado up at 10 and 11, Fairbanks between 12 and 1, Slegers between 1 and 2, and Thompson down there at 3. That's just everything you see as a hitter looks different. So like, do you think about it in terms of varying up looks? Do you think about it in terms of who's going to be used when, or do you try to shoot for both of those things? Is it realistic to have your cake and eat it too in this case?
I feel like it's what do you got? Like, who do you have? And I just think that kind of played out. Like, I don't know if they built that on purpose as much as they are like, this is the guys we have to work with, and they all do certain things well. Let's see what we can put together. And then you over communicate what those guys are expected to do, and that's what the Rays do well. That was I talked extensively with Loop about this. He's like, we knew exactly. Like, he's like, there were series where I just didn't pitch. There was just no lefties to face because I was so good against them. Like, it's just, and we didn't need me. We just didn't need me for series. It's great. I loved it. But then there was times like, you're gonna face, like, their best hitters are lefties and they're batting 2-3. Like, you're coming in because they're not going to get pinch hit for. And he's like, all right, well, this is the one where I'm going to pitch 3 days in a row because that's what I need to do. But I know that next series I might not have to. And they know that. I think that ideally you would want, for me anyway, if you had a closer who established a closer, like you feel like the game's over or close to it when he comes out, having a good closer there's something, just bridging to him, the game gets shorter. And when the game gets shorter for maybe a young bullpen, it's a little bit less daunting. Like, we can get to the 9th, but we don't know how we're going to win the game in the 9th inning. That's different than if you have somebody. And then if you can get an 8th inning guy that's pretty much the same thing or has a lot of experience, they're going to be solid, and they're going to get the same thing every time, the Brian Abreu's and the Presleys. That's ideal. And then pretty much everyone else, if you can just have, like, these guys are the ones who we're closer ahead, and these guys are the ones if we're down by a couple, or like, and then we have the guy who's like the starting pitcher is getting lit up and he needs to throw 3+ innings. You have the long guy. The long guy's never going to go away. It's getting more and more important now. So, like, but if the other 5 guys in the pen can do leverage and everyone gets opportunities to, that's what the Rays do too. That, I think that benefits you long. Like, if you have a bunch of guys who have like 9 holds on the air, everyone's been put in the position where they had to go get out so that maybe they weren't expecting to have to go get it. That's when you get the really, really good bullpens operating. So the Rays do that well. The Dodgers do that really well. The Twins do that well.
I wanted to ask you, and maybe you've already sort of answered it with the way you were talking about the Rays, but I want to push it even beyond. The Rays kind of do this, but I want to push this to like the most bizarre, most like sort of crazy version of this. And let's say I'm the new GM of your team, and I come sit down, and you're like, why is the GM in on the bullpen meeting? But I'm like, this is important to me, and I want to tell you, I want buy-in from you guys. So I've come down from the office to tell you guys, like, we think that we've modeled the batter-pitcher interaction better than anybody has to date. And there are some really interesting things that I've seen research-wise that we're getting really close to understanding how certain swings interact with certain pitches. And so I come down and I say, we think we've really figured this out, and you guys represent the best of the best that we've got to fight each of these different types of swings. And so I'm here to tell you, every single one of you guys is going to get a save this year. Every single one of you guys is going to get a save this year. Maybe none of y'all is going to get more than 10 saves. And we may bring you anywhere in from the 6th to the 10th. Maybe the 5th, maybe in the first to the 10th. Like, we we are really going to try and game this out so that when you come in, you have something that we think that batter cannot deal with. And we prepared you for that. And so I just want to get you guys buy-in that you guys are all going to succeed. You're all going to get some things here, but we may not have someone that comes out of this with 30 saves. Like, and you may be sitting next to, you sit next to that bullpen phone for 6 innings. What would your reaction be as a reliever?
I would hate that so much because here's how the psyche of a reliever works, especially if it's a day where you're alive or you're not down, which there are certain organizations that just will not tell you you're down. You have to
that's why I like the active roster thing. Force those guys to put red lights on people. Sometimes I would be so nice for a reliever to just be like, okay, I'm not in tonight. Thank you.
Oh, I got a rapport with Jeremy Hefner to the point where I could walk into the clubhouse. He'd just make eye contact with me and I go, or he knew about Whoop and he knew about stuff. So I could be like, hey, I have a red. I could screenshot it, be like, I slept terrible last night and I pitched 2 days in a row. So it would be like, he'd be like, hey man, let me know how you feel tomorrow, because I've thrown twice in a row, right? And maybe one of them was a little bit longer, and I'll be like, all right, I'll let you, because he knows. I'll be like, I'm good, let's go for 3, because I'll game. If I need a game, I'll game. And I'll be like, hey man, I feel terrible today, and I could tell him that first thing in the morning, and he'd be like, all right, cool, I'll communicate that. And that was like something we had. And so if you wake up in the morning, your body immediately, my brain would immediately go like, I got to pitch tonight. So now if
I was your GM, if I gave you that speech, you'd feel like every day you wake up on red alert.
I'd be more stressed every day. And then knowing like I would go out to the bullpen in the 4th inning, not because like I didn't want to be out there. It was more so like separating myself from the game for a little bit gave me 3 innings of like, I could just stretch. I'm not like, I'm not as nervous, or I'm not as getting as anxious to go in the game or figure it out. And you got to find ways to manage that so that you're kind of putting, this adrenaline into a small window. Because if you're adrenaline the whole time, it's exhausting. Like even if you're sitting there, you're getting exhausted. And so the more you can limit it, I think that's something they're trying to do. So like Sergio Romo is another great example. That's the value
of a role, right?
That's the value of a role. And it doesn't need to be like, this is your inning, though that is helpful. Like if you're a closer, that you're going to be only going into safe situations. Like you get to relax quite often. I loved it. That was really not. It actually made me better at when I was pitching, because I feel like I was like, oh, this is the time.
What if we over communicated, like you're saying? Like what if I was like, okay, I know you guys are freaking out now, but what you're going to do when you get to the park is you'll know what it's going to look like. He's going to tell you like, these are your batters.
Yes. That's an ideal. If you want to do that, that's the way to do it, is to be like, these are your batters. This is your
they group. Come up in these situations and the score is like this. That's going to be your time.
You expect to be the one getting up. And then that way you're like, you see it coming. You're watching the game. So it keeps you engaged too. Because you're like, here's my situation. And I know that from this inning to this inning, this is kind of my range. Like
you can watch those batters, early in the game.
Or they coming up. When are they coming up? Like, it's the 6th inning. They're coming up and it's tied. I'm pitching. And Loop said there was times where he'd be like, oh, but if they come up in the 8th, right? And this guy, like this is the lefty that throws in the 8th. I'm the lefty that throws in the 6th. Like he knew that. But if that lefty in the 8th was down, it was his turn now. It's like, so you can read it pretty easily at that point. You can figure it out. But that communication is important. You can't just say any one of you can pitch anywhere from the 3rd to the 9th every day. That would produce poor results too. But that's like that's the playoffs.
That's the playoffs. But everyone's stressed during the playoffs.
Exactly. Have your cleats on and be down there. They were like, Edwin Diaz, be down there in the 3rd inning. Yeah. Like he'd come down in the 5th usually, because he's just only closed. And they're like, in the playoffs though, we want everyone down there. I mean, he's like, you're not going to throw in the 1st, but like,
right,
you might come in base loaded, no one out.
If that was what
we need to punch out the side and you're our guy because you punch out 2 of every 3 guys you face all year, we're going to bring you in that situation. That's definitely a buck move too. So it's like he was ready though. We knew that was communicated, which was the best way to do it. It didn't come up, but it would happen. So like, it would drive me crazy if they were like, hey, just expect to do this all the time and there's going to be some guesswork involved. But if they're like, we're going to be very clear about when these things are changing, then I'm on board. Then it becomes a role.
Would it be,
it just changes all the time.
Exhausting for the pitching coach and the bullpen, even to do my version of the over communication every day? Would that still be exhausting for 162, where it's like, you know, could you just tell me that I'm like even Loop, he's like, I'm the 6th inning lefty. That's a little bit, that's easier. That's like for 162, that's easier. What I'm talking about almost sounds like playoff ball all year a little bit. You know, It's like, it's tonight, it's, you know, you're Pete Alonso, but like Pete Alonso threw blah, blah, blah. And it could be the 6th, or it could be the 7th, or it could be the 8th. That's still pretty intense for,
well, they usually do it series by series.
April.
They do it by series. Like I know the Dodgers do that. Like, so you get your rundown for the whole series. And if anything is adjusted, he just goes, hey, by the way, tonight it might be a little different because of some other extenuating circumstances. Someone came back from the IL, or someone got hurt and isn't in the like, so you don't have to like Ohtani's out. So you don't need to, you're our Ohtani guy.
Doing it with series by series can reduce the amount of communication that we have to do, so that we're not like, okay, bullpen meeting today, full hour.
And then after you do it 5, 6, 7 series, and then guys would start to be able to predict it. Like, so you walk in back, hey, I'm facing this guy, aren't I? And they're like, yeah.
Right.
I do think picking up on that pattern would help, but keeping that heart rate down, like having those expectations at least sort of baked in, because at least then you can anticipate as it unfolds, as opposed to the anxiety you've talked about before when the bullpen phone rings and you really don't know if it's you or not. Yeah, that's the situation you want to avoid. You don't want everybody sitting on pins and needles out there for 9 innings or 7 innings. It's just brutal. I can imagine it'd be terrible. Eno said he's into the idea of limited pitchers being available for each game, because you'd have the idea, I'm at the park today and I'm actually down. It's day off. Okay, heart rate's down for the whole game. Great. Breathing easy. Are there some unintended consequences of that would make it not work?
Well, one would be like limiting the number of pitches you have, just in case, you know, because sometimes shit hits the fan. Like sometimes you just got to find a way to get through the game.
It would
honestly, the guy in second's helping a lot.
Pitches, right?
It would, and there's some teams that are just like, will not do that no matter what. Like that, the white flag will never be thrown out that way. Like I know the A's hate doing that. They really do. It's they just really don't want to do it
before they throw a position.
Yes, everyone will pitch before we throw a position player, and that was just the way. I mean, some organizations are like that. It's just like it's like a thing. It's like a white flag thing that you can't let seep it. They feel like you can't let it seep into the psyche or whatever. You know, it was a little bit like we're getting, you know, it's a great day for it. It would really help us out, but maybe that's something that some growth that needs to happen there a little bit. But it would if you only have 5 guys available. Like, it's funny though. They're doing this little bit, like some organizations are doing this and everyone knows. They'll be like, these are guys.
There are more red light organization, right? There are more organizations like
red light. The Mets were. We'd go down. I'd be like, are you up today? Are you, like me and Seth Lugo, for example, because we were interchangeable in a lot of ways. So they're like, I'm like, are you down? Well, that means I have all of our collective situations. But if we're both up, then it could be either one of us. So like that changes how you prepare a little bit. But like that we do that ourselves. Like, did anyone say anything to you? Did anyone say anything to me? And then if you're one of those organizations that no one says anything to anybody, then you go down and have those conversations, and then you know nothing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys like wearing their jackets, phone rings, and then like 6 guys lean forward and go like this with their sweatshirts, like ready to pull them off.
That's bad news, dude.
Yeah, it's and you just see it, the look on their face, like, and I was closing, so I was like, who is it? Like, it's not me. Which it was nice to have that 10 years in that I finally got to be that guy. I was always this guy, and then I got to be the guy who's like, it's not me, it's one of you guys.
I think one unintended consequence might be that you might need to have like 2 long guys.
Yeah, you might need a little more.
2 long guys. Yeah,
you don't really have long man in here.
If you had one more slot, it would be better.
So
incredible bulk.
I put everything in 6 groups, and I kind of put the groups at like there's high leverage guys, there's middle bridge guys.
I mean, 6 is more likely than 5.
These are all just labels, and you'd have multiples from some group, right? Some teams don't even have the capital C closer; they use a committee, or maybe they've got 2 firemen, or you could have someone who's great against lefties and is actually good enough against righties to face both. Plenty of those guys exist, but it seems like you'd want to have ideally like 1 from each of these groups, and then some overlap in some of these roles. Yeah, I think the incredible bulk pitchers that I called, I don't know if anyone's ever called them that before, but I think those guys are super useful. Like Bryce Wilson's that guy for the Brewers right now. He's starting games because they've got so many injuries. Junis has been that guy in the past, kind of had the opener in front of him and worked a bunch of different ways with the Giants. Now he's being used like a starter. Well, now he's hurt, but Matt Strom's a good example of that. I think in Eno's world where we have limitations, you would need more bulk options available. Guys that can get 6 outs pretty comfortably and really not have major problems.
Yeah, because what if your starter gets hurt or your starter leaves? You may have to have some contingency plans, or if a starter gets hurt or it goes into extra innings, you unlock an extra pitcher or something.
Yeah, and just like keeping either keeping your team within arm's reach for a game, that still matters if you're coming in early, and then also not burning out the rest of the bullpen, keeping those guys fresh when you don't have off days is really important. So it's one of those roles that I think people say, oh, it's the last guy in the bullpen. It's still important, still matters because it has a kind of a cascading effect on other days, even if you don't win that particular day.
Exactly.
I think the hardest thing also would be like teams kind of have A bullpens and B bullpens.
Yeah.
This now I'm trying. I don't know if you've been in the B side before, but like
I have.
What's that like? So if I have to declare 5 or 6, I have to kind of declare some A's and some B's because I might lose tonight.
Yeah, a little bit, and that stuff kind of already happens. It's just like kind of unsaid, and like all the players know intuitively.
They're trying to pitch their way onto the A squad if they're on the
exactly,
B squad.
Or guys in the A squad like have struggled recently. I actually tried to have that conversation last year where I was really struggling with the clock, coming back off the IL. I remember going into Katse's office and saying, "Hey, I understand that I have the most leverage experience, like far and away of anybody in the bullpen. But if I could get like 2 or 3 where it's just like I'm throwing in the 6th inning and it's like we're not tied, or like help, if there's an opportunity of a low leverage outing just to see this work, that would be ideal." And immediately I was throwing in leverage because we were in leverage every time. It was like it was like a 1-run game every game. Sears, JP Sears threw like 5 innings and 559 pitches and got pulled. We didn't know he was on a 5 inning that day, and they called down like, "Man, get up in the 6th." And I was like, what? Like, well, the guy goes out of the window, but I also got it because I was like, I looked around, I was like, yeah, like no one's really throwing, no one's separating themselves into the leverage guys. So I'm just used to like when things weren't going well, we always had like 2 or 3 guys who were throwing well, and that they became the leverage guys until I like started to work my way back into that situation. And I just first time I was on a team that like there really wasn't many options. Like everyone's just going to pitch whenever. We were just trying to get there, and I got that opportunity again, but it was sometimes you need that. So yeah, that would become like knowing that, oh, I'm the guy who's like, I'm the garbage time guy. But it's an opportunity. You got to see it as an opportunity. If I throw well here though,
I'm still in the big leagues. I'm still in the big leagues.
And it's an opportunity that's very low stress. And if I pitch well, then, now I become another option in higher leverage, and then pitch well in that time. And then suddenly you're back, doing the 8th inning again. That's just what I did over and over again. So, it's helpful actually in a little ways, being like not demoted to AAA, but just being demoted kind of like you're not going to get the most important innings yet. Let's give you some opportunities here and see what happens. I think that's That's a good way to get guys back on the horse, especially guys that are experienced.
I keep looking at this long roll too and thinking maybe that's a better way to get the kinds of reps you would need to become a late bloomer as a starter, because you're working through the lineup more than once. You got to use the arsenal to a greater degree and have more depth.
You're in the big leagues, not pitching against minor leaguers.
You didn't have to go to KBO or you didn't have to go to NPB to get those extra reps. So, you didn't have to make that massive life transformation. Yes, you got the role instability if it goes wrong. But yeah, if you look at it like an opportunity.
Yeah, like Merrill Kelly could have been like a long guy for somebody for a couple of years. Would he have been as good coming back is another question.
I don't know if he would have gotten the opportunity. So that's the thing. They might just be like, you're a great long guy forever. Like that happens too.
Like is Strom ever
doing it with Kyle Muller right now in Oakland? Like he's throwing really good. He's got 2-6, throwing long, eating innings, and but he's not like, he doesn't need to go take the ball. Where if he struggles, it's like so glaring as a starter. He can work through these things a little bit better because usually he's throwing in a game that's maybe out of hand already, or they're already, you know what I mean? It's not so like there's not so much pressure, and I can see that he is. Like his quality of pitches and stuff are getting better and better and better because of the way he's being used. But like a guy like Mason Miller, I know they want him to start long term, but like he might become just a closer. Like,
yeah,
remember they tried this with Chapman for way too long.
Early career Chapman, they thought he was going to be a starter. I don't know how you get there with Mason Miller. Like, I don't know how you come up with a plan physically to get him through full seasons to the point where you're like, he's going at least 5 every time out. It would take 3 or 4 years to do it, no matter how you tried.
I want him to throw.
He only has 60. What's he have? Like 70 career innings, concluding the minors.
Yeah.
He only had 24 innings in the pro ball before he got called to the big leagues. Yeah. And that was because of injuries. So, but he's electric. I think that's pretty clear. I think that maybe we should just say, this is what you do now. You could be this guy for a long time. Let's just let you be an elite closer.
Yeah, and I
need those too.
I put him in our list here. I mean, I put 6 closers on here. I think he belongs. I think he has that.
I think he does too.
It's the explosive fastball. It's the at-bats we talked about earlier in the week against the top of the Yankees order. Those were situations where those guys were trying to just get an A swing off on his fastball, and they couldn't touch it.
Nowhere close.
Those were stars that looked defenseless. You don't see that. That's a very unusual thing to have that much on a fastball. You could guess fastball. You could kind of miss in the middle of the plate. I think the one against Judge didn't matter.
He's got an elite slider too. Elite slider. Yeah. So that's all you really need. It's just about being healthy. But yeah, he's getting some 103.5s now, and I mean he's one of the most athletic people, like just strong, and he's huge too. He's my size, but like way more athletic than me. Like he can jump out of a gym. So I'm like, just let him eat, let him go out and eat. So yeah, they finally got a good closer in Oakland.
We talked a little bit about the role of command, and how like I think for a starter, it's just more important. You don't want like a lot more base runners. Like you don't want to deal with that. Like a reliever is like, this is still 1 inning. I'm still going to just try to strike everybody out. A starter has to think like, how do I get through 6 innings? How do I get through 5 innings? And so when I look for future closers, I look at Stuff Plus, but I like if I'm using fastball Stuff Plus, I flipped it over to the sinkers. Luis Ortiz on the Pirates comes to mind. He reminds me a little bit of Robert Suarez. Not the command's not always there. Abner Uribe on the Brewers, Yency Almonte on the Cubs. These are guys where the command isn't there. Even Lucas Urseg last year. It's a little bit better this year. You slim that arsenal down. Luis Ortiz, you say, okay, you're a 2-pitch guy now. You're just sinker slider. Don't throw those other ones. You can't command them as well. You kind of figure out things. You just and you get that velo boost when you're in short outings, and you say, oh, you know what? You were trying to like nibble around the corner as a starter. Now you're 99, so just throw it down the middle. So that's a place that I would shop for future closers. But there are guys where the command, and I think of like, what was it, Henry Rodriguez or something, where the command is so bad it can't even work as a closer. I don't know. Is that just an eye test thing, or is that like what are you thinking about when I'm saying this?
No, yeah, you're completely right. There's like a range where, like honestly, a level of effectively wildness is actually helpful because there's so much pressure on the hitter to make something happen because there's no time to like you can't make a mistake. So like the margin for error is low. So that like going up and be like, I'm gonna get a fastball down the way and it's gonna be in the zone. Like even if that's taken away and the guy throws 100, like Edwin Diaz is like that. Like he mails one to the backstop once an outing. Like the first throw he throws down to the bullpen is literally to the backstop on purpose because it's like I'm going to do this once and fear God,
get out of the way.
But he has a
celebration thing, or he just airs it out and he's like, all right.
Well, it's a lot. Part of it's making or trying to mess up Eric Langell, the bullpen catcher, too. Which is funny. Who has to catch him every time? There's 2 guys down there, and they make Eric. Eric's the guy who came second.
Did you see that happened in San Francisco? Trevor?
Oh yeah, he hit with the
lights
where they turned him off. Yeah,
Yeah, Camilo Duvall's pitch is in the bullpen warming up to go out, and they have this new reliever montage with the lights and stuff, and the lights go dark and like a spotlight goes on Camilo Duvall as he walks out, but the light went out as Camilo Duvall threw his last warm-up pitch. So
not only that, his last warm-up as hard as he can. Right? He's one of those guys.
Going 99, and the ball comes out of his hand, and then everything goes dark, and everyone's like, "Is the bullpen catcher dead?"
He probably just it just happened so fast that he just caught it. It was like, it's natural. He didn't even register the lights turned off.
Oh my God!
But that place is scary. I was told a couple stories about it on the other side because they put a piece of plexiglass because there's the railings like low behind the catcher on the way side. Yeah, and they have a piece of plexiglass that's like a little bit up, but like people can still
stand on the other side above it. A ball might whoa.
Well, Acevedo actually hit somebody in the glance off the top of their head, and he didn't notice, and she just crumpled, and it was like, you just hit a fan in the head. She was okay, but he didn't see it. He asked for another ball because he just let it sail. So, and everyone else dude, and he just kept pitching. But Edwin throws to the backstop a lot. And he does it to Lengyel, and he literally let one eat and just hit the plexiglass, and the fans were everyone panicked. I mean, it was it was the bottom of it, it wasn't even close to going over, but he just laughed because that's what he does. He does it to the catcher, so the catcher panics.
Well, where is that line though? We're seeing Tanner Scott. I mean, just one last bit is a little bit kind of fantasy oriented. Is Tanner Scott is really struggling in Florida, and I don't know. Yeah. He's got kind of lower end command on this scale. Yeah. Ryan Stanek, which you might see some of if you're watching these Mariners games, might be moving towards the ninth. My Location Plus numbers say that Stanek has worse command than Scott, and so I don't know, is it something that's just luck, you're just sort of riding the wave, or kinda. Does it or maybe Location Plus is not capturing the right stuff here, maybe it doesn't really
I wonder, does Location Plus take into affect how bad the miss, how I don't know, competitive location or anything? Because
it's mostly a pitch and count adjusted judge of location. So yeah, okay. I guess the further it gets out, the more blue it gets.
The more blue gets. So the thing about Stanek is sometimes he misses non-competitively. He'll throw a fastball in the other batter's box up because he's just trying to throw it 100 down and away, and he just yanks it, and it's just a pitch that just doesn't count. A guy who, again, I was monitoring this very closely. Ken Waldachuk was leading the league last year, and when he was 0-2, he'd throw 3 non-competitive pitches, none of them were close. So he's missing too badly. Even though a ball is a ball, there are better balls than others. And so a guy like Tanner Scott misses in the middle zone too much. Yes. So his misses, his location, he's trying to throw quality pitch, and he's missing where he's giving up damage. Stanek's throwing a pitch that nobody could hit if they had it.
So it's just just give me a new ball. Here we go.
Yeah, just give me a new ball. And so it just kind of is a throwaway, literally. And the count just changes. It's better to do. Edwin Diaz does that too. It's better to do that than what Tanner Scott does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be low risk, but low reward.
Do you like Stanek possibly to be the closer there?
I think so. I don't think Munoz has shown that he's missing.
For some reason, his stuff is down a little bit too. It's not just
sinker a lot.
He's loving the sinker. It's something's a little strange.
Yeah, he's mad. That guy's. If there's anyone who looks like they're trying to throw hard, it's Andres Munoz. That guy he's Bobby Ayalaing every time, falling off the camera. So
Matt Brash doesn't have great command either, and he's coming back, so he could end up a closer too.
But his stuff just moves so much. I don't even know how you could have good command, frankly. He's got to start it he throws a wiffle ball. I don't know. That guy's a freak.
It's impossible. Well, yeah, we need to go for now. If you got questions for a future episode, send those our way. You can drop them in our Discord. The link for the Discord's in the show description. You can email us, ratesandbarrels@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. Trevor's at I am Trevor May. Eno's at Eno Saris. I'm at Derek Van Riper. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you at 1 o'clock Eastern on Friday.
Thanks for listening.